What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. That's right, the only sports podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. How are we
That's
doing
me.
today, Casino?
Not feeling too great.
Uh,
This is going to be a struggle of a day.
Not. I mean, when isn't it? When isn't it? That's life.
That's
right?
true. That's
hard
true.
times.
Yeah, it
Build
is hard
strong
times.
men.
But we're
Also,
good.
Casino.
You? How about you? I never ask you. How are you doing? How are you doing?
Well, actually, I am sad today because, as you can see, if you're watching the video, over my on the video, over my left shoulder, I have a Dragon Ball Z poster, right? That I am hanging in my room. And this morning, as we're recording this Friday morning, Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball Z, passed away. So, yeah, that's quite a blow. He literally died. He was age 68. So rest in peace to maybe one of the most influential storytellers of the last 30 years. I don't know. Because when we were kids, Casino, I mean, there was nothing bigger than Dragon Ball Z. That was the biggest show in a child's life.
Ugh. It was that's what it was. Well, with his passing, I just wonder, do you think his spirit turned into a bomb?
Yes, and
spirit bomb. Sorry, I had to.
Well, we all know.
I didn't see that. That sucks. That's bad.
Yeah, he was young too, 68 years old. 68. But yeah, that's sad. Again, it's crazy when you get these guys like him, like George Lucas, like these people where it's like they create the guys who created the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like they create these singular things that just become the most popular, like pop culture phenomenon of a lifetime. And it's literally just one guy.
Right. And George Lucas with I mean, Star Wars was that, but he created the future of how film is done. Like,
yeah,
it's insane what he did with special effects. Like, he created special effects. Not really, but pretty much.
Well, no, he basically showed like what they could achieve, right?
Yeah.
And then he created LucasArts, and it just started.
My kid wants to say hi.
That whole thing, but
say hi, kid. Oh, jeez. Say hi.
I mean, we're 3 minutes in. This podcast's already off the rails. Off the rails.
I know. All right. Go hang out.
Yeah.
Go watch Barney and Friends,
R.I.P. to Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super creator Akira Toriyama, gone way too soon. I still say Cell Saga, for all my nerds out there, maybe the best story ever told. That's my favorite.
The Cell Saga was by far the greatest because, I mean, that was the best. Oh my gosh, this kid.
And then they had to ruin it with everything that came after it, in my opinion. But the peak, nothing better than the peak. But Casino, now that is out of the way, I just saw that right before we started, and I was like, man, that sucks because legitimately one of my favorite things ever. All right, Casino, now we can actually start talking about sports, so let's move on to that. And we are known primarily as an NFL show, so let's talk about I have 3 big stories that happened since our last podcast in the NFL. I think the biggest, personally for me, was, did you see any of the Jason Kelce retirement press conference?
Yeah, because on social media, everybody is just posting clips and clips and clips and clips of it. So I feel like I've watched the whole 45-minute press conference in 30-second clips.
Yeah. I watched the whole thing while I was making breakfast. My wife was sitting
How
there at the
salty were your
table
eggs? How
working.
salty were your eggs from your tears?
I'll tell you what, I think he's one of, if not the best center to ever play the game. He also had maybe the best retirement speech I've ever heard in my life because it felt very authentic. It didn't feel like he was reading something written for him. He was kind of just reading about like his life and what football meant to him and the people who helped him along the way. I I mean, it was maybe a 45-minute, maybe a little longer speech. I watched the whole thing from start to finish, and I cried once every 5 minutes. I started getting teary-eyed. I mean, he had some absolute lines that were oh, I mean, the big dick Nick line, he recited that one again. He brought that out. That brought a tear to my eye. He was talking about like everything leading up to the Super Bowl and the motto and the players. I'm getting teary eyed thinking about it now. I mean, it was legitimately one of the best, not even retirement speeches, just speeches I've ever heard. Like,
Mm,
what a way to go out on top. And then he just ends it by being like, I think that's all I have to say. And then he literally just gets up, hugs his family, and like, that's it. Now, do
that's
I
yeah,
think he's do I think he's officially retired? I think this is one of those situations where Eagles are making a run next year and their center gets hurt. I legitimately think he steps back in. I don't think this
I don't
felt like
know.
a I'll never play again. I think right circumstances, he goes right back.
I
I mean,
don't.
also that might be wishful thinking, but
Yeah.
oh,
I mean, the only retirement speech, video, or anything that I can remember that, because you've seen a lot of them that like actually like got me was the Julian Edelman one where it was like a chair in the middle of Gillette Stadium. It was nighttime, the lights were on, and like he walks, sits down in the chair, and he was just like, um, uh, I told you, Past Nation, I would go until the wheels fell off. Well, like they have fallen off, pretty much, is what he said, and like he's talking about his knees and everything, and like, oh, and then he just like thanks everybody, gives a little quick speech, and then he gets up and then starts walking out of Gillette Stadium. I was like, oh, that one hit home. Like
and you know what?
I had lost it when when he was like, I said I was gonna go till the wheels fell off. Well, they have fallen off, and I was just like, yeah, I get it.
And you know what? I think the reason those 2 hit the hardest is because when you think of Kelsey and then when you think of Edelman, those are really the 2 guys who signify the most of what their teams were, right? Like, when you think of Eagles football, Jason Kelsey is like the mindset, the player, the underdog, like, he wore the crazy costume at the Super Bowl speech, like, a guy who just was the underdog, worked hard, and then became like this fun media guy. And then Edelman is this guy who came into the league, nothing was expected from him, kind of underdog, just work hard, do what you can for the team. That's like the Patriot way, right? So it's like the 2 guys most emblematic of their teams in their most probably successful eras. Well, for the Patriots, definitely. The Eagles, I mean, yeah, I think they went to I don't think no, Kelsey was on the 2004 team, but they went to 2 Super Bowls in Kelsey's tenure as an Eagle. So, yeah, just
Yeah,
really symbolic that those guys had the best retirement speeches when they were the best kind of their era for representative of their team.
nice.
But
Fun
yeah,
Julian Edelman
that
story.
was
I think I've said it before on this podcast, but so one of our listeners, my buddy Victor, who listens to this, um, we were at a Patriot Raiders game, and he met Julian Edelman. I think I told you this on air. He met Julian Edelman because he was at that game, and they they met in the pisser, and there was a whole bunch of people like trying to take pictures with him, like while he was in the pisser, and then the only person that was successful at getting a picture with him, like in the bathroom, was my buddy Palma, and I actually have that. I actually have that picture saved still. It's pretty great.
Is little Edelman in the picture, or is this after the process has been done, Casino? Is
I think it was
this
before the process happened, but, like, everybody was, like, trying
Hmm,
to, like, conversate, or converse with Edelman while he was trying to just take a piss,
got
and
it.
somehow my buddy was
As
just
a
and somehow my
celebrity
buddy somehow my buddy was just like, "These guys, right? Hey, you wanna take a picture too?"
But as a celebrity, I mean, trying to eat and people hounding you, and then trying to go to the bathroom and people hounding you have to be the 2 worst things. Like, that's
Ugh.
just gotta be so
So
annoying. Like, I just wanna go to the bathroom.
who's the
I just
coolest
wanna
person that
eat.
you've met celebrity-wise? And, um, for me, like, I've run into multiple celebrities, but I don't typically try to go out of my way to talk to them, like, they get it all the time. I just that's just in Vegas, you see a lot of celebrities out and about. I just don't care to engage,
Yeah.
but the one that I engage with, I saw Danny Trejo, and that was really cool.
Oh, nice.
And people were, like, bugging him, and he was being very nice about, taking the pictures and whatnot, um, and, yeah, he was just at a casino, um, and, yeah, I just went up to him, and I kept it very simple. I was just like, "Don't want a photo, don't need I just wanna shake your hand, say I appreciate, all the things you do for, film and whatnot," and shook his hand and walked out. And he was like, "Yeah, thank you." I was just like, "That was cool." I got to shake Danny Trejo. I got to shake Machete's hand. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That that is pretty cool. Mine would be, because of the place I work, we get a lot of celebrities, and we also get a lot of
Mhm.
wrestlers,
Oh,
and
I
as you know, I'm a huge wrestling fan. So, I met The Big Show, I met Billy Gunn, I met, Billy Gunn's sons, the Gun Club, if anybody watches AEW, but the
I thought the
one that I had yeah, the one that I had a face-to-face interaction with, and he came up to the bar because obviously we're both
I think I
bartenders.
know who this is. I remember
Uh,
this.
yeah, he came up to the bar. It was Rob Van Dam, and we were face to face, and I turned, and he was right there, and then I was like, I just pointed at him, and I was like, "Oh shit, I know you. You're awesome." And then he was like, "Thanks, man, thanks." And then I was just like, "So what can I get you?" And then we were just talking about alcohol and all that kind of stuff, and then I was just like, "Yeah, big fan." And then he was like, "Thanks." And then that was pretty much it. But I'm not a picture or an autograph
Right,
guy, so I was
same here.
just like, "Oh, it's cool to meet
I
him."
thought you were
Like,
I thought you were gonna say, and going back to the football, is you said you've met Marshawn Lynch multiple times, and you said he's pretty dang awesome.
oh, yeah. No, he's cool too, but I mean,
I could
if it
see
was like an Eagles
I could
player,
s
I'd be losing my mind.
I could see Marshawn Lynch just being totally casual, just super chill at the bar.
Yeah, he drinks, Hennessy Paradise, what is it? It's like a really nice cognac. He's like the nicest guy ever, big tipper. Like, he's the perfect celebrity, right? And plus, the crazy thing is, first time he came in, it was in a room where we were slammed. We were busy, there was 200 people in this room. He was just sitting at a corner table by himself. I mean, he's giant, right? He's giant, he's massive. He was wearing a beanie, he had his
They shoulda gave him
dreads
the
out and all
ball.
that kind of
They
stuff.
shoulda
He
gave
was
him the
with
ball at the 2-yard line.
he was with somebody. I don't know who it was, but nobody bothered him. And then we just went over to his table and he was just like, "Oh yeah, can I have this or whatever?" And we were just like, and I was like, "Oh shit," because I work with a bunch of people who don't watch sports. So they had no idea who he was. And I was like, that's, and gave him off his whole resume or whatever. And then I did the same thing. I was like, "You're awesome." And I should have said they should have given you the ball, but I'm sure he hears that nonstop. But yeah, he comes. I
Uh,
mean, I've met him probably 5 or 6 times. Every time, nicest dude on the planet. I
are you
will
guys on a
never,
first
if
name
anybody
basis?
ever says a bad word about him,
Do you just
no,
call
I
him
don't think
Marsh?
so.
You just
But
call him
again,
Marsh? "What's up, Marsh? What's up, Marsh?"
no, I just go "Oh, hey, what's going on, man? What can I get you?" It's
You don't
very,
even say his name.
he's
You don't even
very
say, "Hey,
nice. He's
Marshawn,
very
how's it
cool.
going?"
No, I don't say anybody's name. I just go, if you're a dude, I say, "Oh, hey man." If you're a chick, I say, "Ma'am." I don't know. But yeah, it's just
You still say
if
man.
anybody ever says a bad thing about that guy, like I'll just be like, "You're wrong." Because I trust interactions with celebrities when it comes to people like in the service industry, right?
Yeah,
Because that's
true.
the time where it's like you're a fucking dickhead if you do anything like berate any of those people. But if you're a really nice person and like take care of them, then I trust you more than like, people being like, this guy's really nice. Like, for example, and this is allegedly casino.
I'm glad we went down this
Everybody,
route. I
you
like
go
this
on,
story.
you go online, everybody's like, oh my God, you know who's the best guy? He's the best guy around. He's so funny. He's so good at interviews, all this kind of stuff. Jamie Foxx would always go into one of my friend's girlfriend's restaurants that she worked on. And again, this was years ago. And every time he would come in, he would have a big entourage and he'd do the dickhead celebrity thing you always hear, where it's like, don't make eye contact with him, don't talk to him, like all this kind of stuff. And then his girlfriend apparently did make eye contact with him once, and she like got like yelled at or berated by him and his entourage, and like he complained to the manager and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, I don't trust when it's interviews or other celebrities being like, this guy's the best, because they know I know who this person is. I know it'll probably get out that I met this person. Right. But when it's everyday people you interact with, it's just like you said, living in Vegas, you always hear stories of celebrity interactions. And it takes literally nothing for somebody to be like, oh, this guy was awesome. Like, Rob Van Dam did nothing to me except just be like, oh, hey, thanks, man. And then he like, on a beer that was $5, he tipped like $5. Right. So it's like, and that also Marshawn Lynch always tips good, but is also just like, oh, hey, man. Like, that's literally the bare minimum for me to just be like, that's the best dude ever. Right.
So
So
when you serve
all
Marshawn
you have to do is,
when you serve Marshawn his drink, do you just like get a bowl of Skittles and like shake it towards him and just be like, Here you go."
I mean, if I knew he was coming in, I would definitely bring Skittles. But
That's awesome. All right, let's
uh
get back to the show.
living in this living in this town, I was just gonna say, I've heard 50 stories about what an absolute monster, again, allegedly, whatever, what an absolute monster Jennifer Lopez is. Like,
Mhm.
I've heard
Yep.
countless stories about how everlopez like,
I've heard that
who's
one
your
plenty.
worst celebrity you've ever taken care of? It's Jennifer Lopez 99 out of 100 times. So
Yeah.
anytime anybody tries
And
to
you wanna
say
know
anything
some
nice about her, I'm just like, no,
I
no.
and I have a buddy who worked at a place where, OJ went in constantly, and he was like, "Yeah, nicest guy. He didn't do it. He didn't do it." I was like, "Okay, fair."
See, it
But
literally takes that. It
that's actually a
literally,
true
all you have to do
story.
is also, this is topical. He was in the news again, allegedly. Uh, Richard Sherman would always come. I used to work at this bar where I had this regular who was a dealer, and Richard Sherman would always come to his table because he was like a
Mhm.
high stakes dealer or whatever. And Richard Sherman is apparently a super asshole, which I mean, based
I
on
can see
everything we've
that.
ever seen from Richard
Oh,
Sherman,
yeah.
is not shocking whatsoever. But that's not an act. He is legitimately, I've heard, again, allegedly, giant asshole. Uh, but now that we got that out of our system, casino,
That
I
was fun.
don't.
We need to talk about that more.
uh, I wanted to. Obviously, the big NFL news is Russell Wilson, but I wanted to get your take on this story because apparently, uh, Rich Eisen, also allegedly, a person I've not heard good things about, which also
That's our
does not
next
shock
shirt,
me
by the
because
way.
he seems like an asshole.
That's our next shirt, by the way.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to
I've heard
start
from people who
we need to
interacted
start
with
our, clothing business.
our t-shirt business.
Yeah.
Uh, but from Rich Eisen, again, alleged asshole from everyone I've known who's met him. There he spoke to people. He said this on his show. What channel does his show play on? I have no idea whatsoever. I feel like his show is literally moved to every single channel that's ever existed. So he's probably on Tubi now or TikTok or I don't know. But apparently when he was at the combine, the word going around was that the Giants are quote unquote done with Daniel Jones after, again, we
Hmm.
remember last year where he signed that big offseason
Massive deal.
contract. And apparently, the Giants now have quote unquote buyer's remorse. They're regretting it, and they are going as far as to look for another quarterback. So,
Damn.
thoughts on just that whole thing, Casino?
Man, I mean, if that's true, we just talked about it last episode. The players that are getting ready to get big contracts or looking into getting contracts, like Justin Fields. That's definitely going to hurt, especially if they move off of Daniel Jones. No, yeah, I didn't like the deal in the
Well,
first place.
also,
I didn't like that deal.
that's what I was
Never.
going to say. Everybody knew that deal was
That
bad.
was a that
Apparently, the
that deal was bad.
Giants, it just took a year for them to figure it out as well,
Yeah, I mean, some of these deals
right?
that went
Like,
out, the Daniel Jones deal, the Kyler Murray deal, the Watson deal, like there's the Russell Wilson deal, like it's they have all backfired. They've all not panned out well. So, I mean, why would you do that to yourself? Why?
yeah. And we can turn this into a free agent conversation because there is a shocking, and I mean shocking amount of free agents that are just being released. Like Justin Simmons, who is one of the best safeties in the league, is just got released by the Broncos yesterday. And then
Yeah.
we'll obviously get to the Broncos in a moment. But the free agents available right now, I mean, Chris Jones still hasn't signed with the Chiefs. There's obviously rumors that he's not going anywhere and the Chiefs are going to pay him money. But if they don't and they let him walk, he's going to be. He last year was the best defensive tackle in the league. So then you have other guys, another defensive tackle, Christian Wilkins, you have Kirk Cousins, you have Baker Mayfield, you have Chase Young, you have Brendan Fuller. Like you have legitimate star players who I feel like teams now are just looking at the Daniel Jones thing and being like, do we really want to pay this guy right now who might be at his peak or might not be far off from his peak, like
Mhm.
top money right now? And I mean, your team, Casino, right now has almost $100 million in
1,000,000.
cap space.
I know,
So
it's insane. Uh, it's a
but
lot. They
so the
just,
5
they just
teams.
they just gave Hunter Henry a deal as well. They extended his contract out, which I like. I like that. I think we didn't utilize Hunter Henry how he should be utilized, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You get a good
But,
quarterback in there,
also
that'll be all over.
well, and then for teams like your team that needs almost an entire offensive rebuild, I mean, the amount of this running backs class of free agents is like the best, all the best running backs from the past 3 years are free
I know.
agents from
Yeah,
Derrick
I'm
Henry to Saquon to,
so my
uh
Patriot group chat, like, we're all just, like, sitting on pins and needles just waiting to see what happens. Like, oh, man, it's gonna be wild.
well,
It's weird
uh
for being a Patriot fan and being in this position where now we have all this money, we're on the rebuild. I mean, if we get the right guy in quarterback and we actually spend money where it could be spent and not overspend for mediocre players, et cetera, the Patriots could probably pull a Houston and go from one of the worst teams to making the playoffs. I'm not going to say they're going to do well, but like they could go from that to making the playoffs because they still have a good defense, a really good defense. So you just need to fix
Yeah.
everything
And
on the offensive end, and you have $100 million to do it, and the number 3 pick
yeah.
overall. Like, there's a very good possibility where the Patriots could do what Houston did last year, and that's mainly because they have so much capital with their finances there. So
So
yeah.
with the Patriots, the most amount of cap space heading into free agency, the only team that has more than the Patriots is the Commanders.
Mhm.
So right now, the Patriots have 88.5 million in cap. Commanders have 91.5. Then it's Titans, Bears, Texans. So interesting that Texans are right there. But then when you think about it, they were so good last year because all their good players were basically rookies,
Yeah.
right? So if they're able to build on top of that,
They pull
but
stuff out of the draft
as
well.
a Patriots yeah. As a Patriots fan, you guys obviously need a quarterback. So
Mhm.
would you rather the available options at the moment, just at the moment, we don't know who's going to come available, but just at the moment, it's Kirk Cousins, it's Baker Mayfield, and then it's Russell Wilson or draft a quarterback. Which of those options would you want to do as a Patriots fan?
Um, Definitely not Wilson. Fuck, don't wanna touch him. Don't touch him, and I think Gerard Mayo's smart enough to whack him away, just like, "Nope, nope." Um, the able or, the able the Mayfield, um, Baker Mayfield, interests me. I just don't think that he's going to leave with Mike Evans re-signing in Tampa. I don't think that he's going to leave Tampa now with the year that he had. Very successful. I mean, you go to the playoffs, you take your team to the playoffs. You know, when you weren't even sure you were going to be the starter at the beginning of the season, you take your team to the playoffs and you win a playoff game. Like that's a really good. Like you've turned your corner on. You know, you finally got out of the previous relationships that you were in, and now you're on a team that actually seems to fit with you. I like it. Um, I wouldn't mind seeing Baker come over. I love Kirk Cousins as a person, and I like him as a quarterback, but he's had really good teams in Minnesota, and he hasn't been able to bring them. Like a good, he's a really good quarterback. As I've said, he's the best second tier quarterback in the league, and he always has been. Like he's just can't seem to ever get past that next hump. So I mean, I think we've seen what we could get with Kirk Cousins. So I'd say no to that. But the Baker, I still think he's got a long road ahead of him because he's finally figured it out. Um, that's my thoughts on Baker. But we were talking about the possibility of moving back a little bit in the draft or getting a few other people in the draft and then waiting until like um, Penix, who's just played for Washington, um, and my buddy brought up a good
Yep.
point that he's not great under pressure, and we saw that in the national title game. But if you protect him, look what he did in the semifinals, where he was dropping dimes. So if you're able to give him help on that line and you are able to protect him, you know, I like that. I if you don't get Baker, definitely you're drafting. I think they have mentally moved off of Mac Jones. Like if he stays around, he's going to be the
Yeah.
backup at best. Um, but I would like Baker out of the available quarterbacks that are out on the field, but definitely drafting a quarterback because we're not happy with what we have. I don't think, and it's not just
And I
the fans
can't
aren't happy,
believe
like the players. You can see the players. Like I just mentioned, Hunter Henry. He was so visibly upset with Mac Jones because he's lost that locker room that you don't want to play with a quarterback that's already tainted in the locker room. So
yeah. But I can't believe I mentioned Chase Young before I mentioned Daniel Hunter, who is also a free agent available. He had 16 and a half sacks last year. Like how the Minnesota Vikings are going to let him go, potentially Cousins go, I don't know. But uh let's talk about Russell Wilson Casino. So,
Yes.
he was released by the Broncos, and I want to tell you, so he was released by the Broncos, and let me read this because this is insane. And this is by Mirov on Twitter, X, whatever the fuck you call it now. Mirov, by releasing Russell Wilson, the Broncos will take on an NFL record $85 million in dead cap money. For context, that's more than the last two dead money records combined. So,
Jeez.
I mean, for the Broncos to eat $85 million in dead cap money, uh, we saw what Russell Wilson did last year. He kind of reverted to the Aaron Rodgers era of where he plays just to not throw interceptions and not necessarily to take risk and make, moves as a quarterback, which is not doesn't work in this era because we see guys like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes who will turn the ball over two times, but then throw five interceptions or run, or you get what I'm saying? Like they
Yeah.
just take risk, and that leads more to winning than it does losing. And we've talked about the issues with Aaron Rodgers the last couple of years where he doesn't take the risk and doesn't risk the throws and all that kind of stuff. You can say all that about Russell Wilson last year. I mean, you look at the stats are great, but then you watch the games and it's like, no wonder that Russell Wilson was averaging less, like 150 yards and less passing every game because he was doing nonstop checkdowns. He wasn't extending plays. He wasn't taking shots downfield. So, I mean, if you're the Broncos Casino, do you think that Russell Wilson was bad enough where you're going to be eating almost $90 million in dead cap money?
If you knew that you wanted to get off of him and you wanted to move on, I mean, that's tough to do, but like it's either do it now and rip off the band-aid or you're screwed for I mean, I know you're still screwed because of all that dead cap space, but you're that's man. Um you knew he's not going to be your long-term guy. You want to get rid of him, just do it. Yes, you know, you have to now eat all that cap, but there had to been more to it. Like in the locker room with the coach. I mean, Sean Payton's a piece of shit anyway, but like there's there had to been more to this than them just being like, all right, we know that he's not the guy. But when that's the case and somebody has a big contract, you typically see them still keep them on. They'll just they move them around to like second string or whatever, but they're they're not going to put all their eggs in that basket anymore. They're going to start to restructure around a different player until that contract works out or until that contract runs out. So yeah, that's a tough spot. I don't know. I mean, they were dumb to make the deal in the first place, so you can't feel bad about it.
Yeah, and but I do think this is an indictment on Sean Payton because also another free agent quarterback we didn't talk about is Jameis Winston, which we saw when he stepped in limited time in uh uh New Orleans. He was successful in the Sean Payton system. So now within 2 years of Sean Payton being there, he's obviously just lost Justin Simmons. The defense got disastrously worse than it was when the previous coach was there. The previous coach that Sean Payton went on a rant about and said this team should have made the playoffs and all that kind of stuff.
You remember when you picked them to be your
Then
Super
that
Bowl
team
winner?
did worse the next year. Yeah, and that was a mistake. That was the first year we did this podcast, and that was whoo. But then we have Yeah, Sean Payton basically clearing house. He was like, I can make Russell Wilson work. I don't know why anybody wouldn't be able to. And then literally a month and a half into the season, he's screaming at him on the sidelines and taking shots at him in the media. So Sean Payton is getting his way. But what if his way leads to, oh, I don't know, the Broncos being worse next season? How could they not be? Right? It's not like, unless they get a much better quarterback, but then their defense needs to improve. They don't really have any offensive weapons. So it's just like they're going to be a team that now has no cap space. They have no draft picks because they traded all their draft picks to get Russell Wilson. So they have nothing to rebuild. They have no money. And then their roster's bad and getting worse. So I don't know what the plan is. Sean Payton is a decent coach, but it's kind of that uh Mike McCarthy thing where it's like, how long can you ride off the success of a Super Bowl you won nearly a decade ago and haven't gotten close to since? Right? It's like, how much does that buy you? And also, it's one of those things where it's the Brady Belichick debate where it's we saw Sean Payton be great when he had Drew Brees. Since he hasn't had Drew Brees, he's been on the Broncos for a year. He kind of had hit or misses with other guys on the Saints teams, but again, I don't know what the plan is, Casino. If you're the Broncos, what's the silver lining to all this?
There's not.
Oh, also you're in a division with the Chiefs, who are
No.
a
The
dynasty
silver
already.
line the silver lining is you got a good hockey team and a good basketball team. There's your silver lining. Just watch a different
You
sport
know
for a
what?
while. Watch a different sport for 5 years.
Perfect segue.
This
Perfect segue, Casino.
not a segue.
Because Segu.
Segue.
Perfect Segu. Let's move on to, or actually, wait. Before we move on, or I guess Casino already left. So before we move on, where do we think Russell Wilson ends up? And then we'll talk about the Denver Nuggets. Uh,
Um, let's see. I
so
don't
the
think he
front
makes a roster.
runners, I don't think he makes a roster as a starter. I think that is, I think he's just, I think
Oh,
we've
he's
seen the
never gonna be a
last of Russell
starter. He
Wilson.
will never be a starter again unless there's an injury. He's either not gonna be on a roster or
Yeah.
he's gonna be a backup at best. Um, yeah. I mean, I honestly think that he's not gonna get picked up because there's obviously more to
Well,
it there's obviously more to him. Like, there's issues with him within the locker room. So,
the only thing with him being cut the way he was is that because the Broncos will basically be paying for most of his salary next year, you can sign him for basically nothing. So for a team like, I don't know, for a team like, the rumors are the Raiders, the Steelers, the Falcons, all the usual teams that
I think
quote
the
unquote need a quarterback.
Falcons make the most sense to me.
Yeah. I think also Russell Wilson was bad last year, but Desmond Ritter was worse. Right? So it's like one of those things where even a slight upgrade when you don't have to pay somebody is better than sticking with Desmond Ritter, or maybe you draft a rookie and then you sign Russell Wilson for cheap and then kind of have the rookie learn under him. I don't know. Or you just have him on the roster to teach the rookie. We'll see. I think he does. I think the groundswell it looks like is going to end up on the or on the Raiders. So I think that's definitely a chance where he could end up there, but I don't know. I think I agree with you. I think his days as a starter are numbered. Are
Oh,
numbered.
I think they're done. It's
All
done.
right.
But
Yeah.
Segu,
But speaking of Denver, segue to last night's game. I have not. This NBA season has been very weird. There's been a lot of blowouts. It has not been a very entertaining NBA season. And then it kind of got to the All Star break. The All Star game was a joke and it was over 200. And it was kind of just like, what is going on with this NBA season? Since the All Star break, it has done a complete 180. Now, the NBA, I'm fully invested. This past week, we have just had banger after bangers, as well as last night casino where we had the proverbial favorites in the West and the East. The Celtics are the best team in the NBA
That was
record
a good
wise,
game.
and
That
they're
was a good game.
I mean, they're clearly the number one seed in the East. The Nuggets are technically the third seed in the West, but I still think I'm picking them to repeat as finals winners. And then
Oh yeah, there's no
last
better
night,
starting 5 in the NBA than Denver. The closest after that would be the Celtics. It's going to unless something crazy happens, it's going to be a Nuggets Celtics final. And it's going to
yes, and
at least 6 games.
well, and then we the only teams ahead of the Nuggets in the standings are Timberwolves and Thunder, two teams I don't trust either of.
So real
Then
quick,
behind them,
my buddy keeps hitting me up that listens to this show. He was like, "Oh shit, you're recording a podcast. Never mind, I'll stop bugging you." But shout out to you, bud. Shout out to you, Francisco. What up? So yeah, I just sent him that picture of me taking the
but
pod.
there you go. But no, yeah, for what you just said, the only team that has a potential better starting five in the league is the Celtics. And we just saw the Nuggets last night beat the Celtics 115 to 109. And even though it was 115 to 109, it never felt like the Celtics were going to win that game. The way the Nuggets were controlling the possessions and what Jokic was doing was insane. I mean, some of the officiating in that game also, uh Jokic was getting mugged under the rim by three guys, no call. Jason Tatum on the other end was getting breathed on and was getting two free throws every time. It was such a weird, it was like they were treating Tatum like he just won the NBA Finals last year and was the Finals MVP instead of who actually did, which was Jokic. And Jokic was losing his mind on the refs for almost the entire game, or especially the entire fourth quarter. But Jokic ended the game 32 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. He had one of the best passes you're ever going to see under the rim, where again, he's getting mugged by three guys. And he looks like he's doing a shot, but he actually is doing an alley oop to Gordon, who dunks it. And Jamal Murray on the other end with the Celtics loses the ball. Celtics have a chance to go down and score. And then I believe it was Tatum who missed the shot that would have tied the game. And then that was kind of the turning point where
Dagger, yeah.
that was the closest the Celtics got. And then the Nuggets just ended up winning it. But I mean, this Nuggets team, for what you get Gordon, you get Michael Porter Jr., you get Jokic, you get Murray, you get Caldwell Pope, and then you have Braun as this little like kind of glue guy who is just out there doing he'll
You
go on
need those kind of
streaks
guys,
and
dude. You
stuff.
need glue. You need glue.
Ugh, it was what a game. What a game, Casino. And that was after 2 or 3 days earlier where the Cavaliers came back from 22 points down against this same Celtics team to
That was
snap
awesome.
yeah,
I mean,
to
obviously I'm a
snap
Celtics
the
fan, but
Celtics.
that was awesome. We've talked about how Cleveland over the past couple of years have been a really young, fun team to watch, and they're really competitive. And I didn't know their record was as good as it was. I knew that they've been competitive all year, but then I saw that record and I was like, oh shit, like because I don't follow the NBA like you do. I'll watch it when it's at work, you know, but and I know which teams are like good and which teams are bad, but like that middle of the road teams, don't pay attention too much. But yeah, I didn't know that they're having a really good season.
Yeah, the past like yeah, like you said, like 2, 3 years they've been pretty good. They're right now 3rd in
Yeah.
the East, and that game was just crazy to watch. Again, snaps the Boston 11-game winning streak, and then this game and the Nuggets game, you're kind of starting to see the cracks in the armor for this Celtic team, which is Celtics team very talented, very good. Maybe well, definitely in the East, the best starting five. In the West, I would put them still in contention with some of the upper echelon West teams. But then you look at the Celtics are kind of, and we see this in football all the time, where it's the teams like the Cowboys last year, when they get a lead and they're able to sustain the lead, they can just kill you, right? And they'll run you off the court, and all of a sudden you lost that game by 30 points, and you're looking around like, what happened? But it's in those close games, and it's in those games where the teams are down big, like the Cavaliers, where they don't give up and they fight back and fight to the final whistle, where all of a sudden you start seeing the cracks in the Celtics, where it's this team when it's close in the fourth quarter. I don't know if you can trust. I don't know if you can trust Tatum. I don't know if you can trust Brown. I don't know if you can trust Porzingis. Right where I don't
Such a
know if you
fun
can
name.
trust
I
the
love
big three.
Porzingis. Such a great name.
uh it is a great name. But yeah, it just becomes that thing where I don't know if you can trust the big three of the Celtics right now in clutch moments to close out games. I think Jason Tatum is a top 5 player in the NFL, but we see top 5 players in the in the NBA, but we see top 5 NBA players all the time struggle when the tone shifts from regular season game to postseason. As a Celtics or as a Sixers
Sixers?
fan,
You're a Sixers
yeah,
fan.
we see NBA MVP caliber basketball all year from Embiid, and then the second it gets to the playoffs, all of a sudden he's a completely different person. That was also the narrative on Jokic until last year, right? Playoff basketball is different because you have to be better than a team 5 out of 7 or 4 out of 7 times, right? Which is hard to do because when you're catching, again, you're catching the Celtics on a Thursday night when they just gave up this huge lead to another team on Tuesday. It's much easier than when you're trying to beat the same team 4 times in a row,
Yeah.
right? And it's just a different mindset. And I don't know, which also we can switch over to the West. That's why I don't trust the Timberwolves or Thunder because both teams are so young. And
Yeah.
again, when it comes to the playoffs, it's a different mindset. And are they going to be able to beat teams like a Golden State, like the Lakers, like the Nuggets, who have been there before and know how to beat a team in a series 4 out of 7 times, right? But I mean, speaking of the Timberwolves last night, Casino, did you see the Anthony Edwards block to win the game at the rim? It
I did
is
not know. I wasn't working there last night, so I
Oh,
didn't see it.
it is one of the best blocks you will ever see. It won them the game against the Pacers. They ended up winning 113 to 111. He is having a phenomenal season, but again, you can't trust him because we've already seen weird stuff from him this season, like showing up to a game late. So
That's wild.
he had to be subbed in like 30 seconds into the game because he missed the opening tip off. Again, he's only
Can you just
22
imagine
years
that?
old.
Just imagine that. Like
It's
you're
oh,
sitting there, you're a superstar, well, you're a professional athlete, you're in the middle of traffic, and you're just like, oh man, like when I mean, for most of us, whenever you notice you're going to be late to work by like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and something like that, but yet you're trying to figure out how to get there on time, but you already know that you're fucked, that you're not going to
yeah.
get there. What do you think was going through his mind when he's sitting in traffic and driving, just or if he's chauffeur or whatever, but just like, I'm not gonna make it on time. I'm not gonna be there to start my professional my professional game. Like, that is wild. Like, I would love to have seen what was happening in his mind when he was, gonna be late to this
But you
game.
know what? He does that a couple games ago, and then last night he does. I mean, he puts up 44 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and then the game-winning block. But then when you look at this Timberwolves team, you can't trust Gobert, I'm sorry. You can't really trust Conley from what we've seen in the past of them in the playoffs. And then Anthony Edwards, again, great player, but can he be this great to carry this team? Again, 4 out of 7 against an experienced team like the Nuggets, like the Lakers, like the Clippers to a lesser extent. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Last thing I wanted to talk about, speaking of the Warriors, they blew out the Bucks, I think 2, 3 days ago. And then last night, Steph Curry limps off the field or limps off the court, missed the last 3 minutes. Klay Thompson has a chance to tie the game with, I believe it was 9 seconds left, misses a wide open layup that rims out, and then they lose the game. Is there any can you think of any moment in sports worse than when you have a wide open layup and you miss it? Because you're standing there, and basketball, I think, is one of the worst sports to do a play like that because you have nothing covering your face, anything. So everybody sees every emotion you're making and has a very clear picture of what you look like, right? Like it's like football, hockey, I guess soccer would be the only equivalent where there's nothing covering you, but soccer or hockey, football, even baseball to a certain extent, because you have a hat at least. Like you can cover your face or not be seeing every emotion. In basketball or soccer, you fuck up. Everyone sees exactly who you are, the expressions you're making, and you can't do anything to hide it. And you could just see Klay Thompson literally wanting to die on the court.
Yeah,
He just
I mean,
looked.
I've seen the open net miss with the hockey players before, like, the goalie got caught out, the puck's back in the guy, and, like, it's literally 5 feet in front of the guy, and you're a professional hockey player, and you shoot and you miss it, but or like the soccer thing where you have the wide open net, and then you shank it, and it's like, oh, like, those ones are ri and, yeah, you do see the soccer one, um, you see their emotions, and they just look, like, dumbfounded, like, they don't know what to do, and they half the time, they just, like they go down to their knees and put their face in the ground just like that because they know they're getting booed. It's great, but,
uh
the layup, dude, because I in my youth, I have played basketball, well, in my earlier years, um,
Now you don't have the knees for it. You don't
dude,
have
I
the knees
don't.
for it, casino.
No, I don't. No. Yeah, I'm no Reeves. I'm too white. I'm no Reeves. But yeah. Missing a layup it hurts. I've missed wide open nets with soccer before because that's my love. I've missed many of those miss wide open nets that way. But you're right. Missing a layup, I remember that to this day, like just hurting. Like
Especially
it
to
wasn't for like
tie
winning
the
the
game.
game. Yeah, see
Like,
this
ugh.
when because I was in middle school when I was playing basketball, and I don't I yeah, I know it was a long time ago, but I still remember, and it wasn't for the game, but missing layups, and then you're like, how do I go on continuing playing this game after missing is what is a gimme? Like,
Well,
oh
see, and that's also the thing with basketball where it's like, then you immediately have to be like, oh, now I'm on defense again. And you just have to like sit in that moment and just be like, man, like now I just have to go try to stop them again. Right?
yeah.
It's like, ugh. But
um,
on that note, casino,
quick thing that we didn't talk about, just kudos because we've been watching it. Caitlin Clark finally does beat Pistol Pete, and it was in the most anticlimactic climatic. Yeah, say the words for me. Anti.
Climactic.
Thank you. Way ever. So she was having a really good game. She was hitting some really good threes. There was one three where she hit it from almost mid-court. Like, it was just she just, like, stops and just, like, "Fuck it," and she just shoots it, drains it, but she ends up getting the record off of free throws. Like, oh, I was like, "Oh." I was like, "This is all hype, and you break the record on a free throw." I was like, "Oh." When you're
Yeah.
you're you're draining threes and you're driving the lane and doing, like, really great plays, and then you just, it hurt. It hurt to watch, like, because I didn't see it live, so I pulled up the highlights, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I wanna see the crowd go crazy and all this stuff, when she does it." And no, it's just a free throw, and I was like, "Oh, alright."
But on that note, Casino, we are out of here. I think we should start doing 2 podcasts a week. I don't know. There's too much sports. It's too good. We'll talk about it. I don't know.
I don't know, we'll talk about it.
But yeah, we got to get out of here. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. We will see you next time on the Only Sports Podcast. Adios.